Hey there, welcome to Excel 2. We're creating a chart here. I wanted to practice a couple things in addition to just making a chart that relate back to the work that we do in class. The first thing you're going to need to do is turn this paragraph into a table. So you're going to read through here and you're going to extract the information you need. Now basically every sentence after the first one turns into a line here, right? So, for instance, 2010 U.S. Census, approximately 12.2 million men in that age group identified themselves as married and head of household. So the category is married and head of household. The number is 12.2 million. Now, when you write 12.2 million, it's important that you think about how you're going to translate that into a number. There's a couple of things to consider, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this over to another page. Oh, Lord, doesn't look good. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make up some of my own numbers. Let's say 3.78 million, 16.2 thousand, what else? 9,800, right? These are things you might encounter in the real world. People are talking about numbers, but they're saying numbers and then they're saying words, and the words are actually part of the number, right? So we talked a little bit about this in class. One of the things that I think is helpful when you're trying to translate 3.78 million is to keep in mind that 3 million looks like this and 4 million looks like this. So 3 million is 3 and 4 million is 4, right? And so 3.78 million is clearly right in between 3 and 4 million. So it's got to be somewhere between these two numbers. So a good technique is to change that decimal into a comma, follow up with the numbers that are after the decimal. I need to complete my 3, so I need to put a 0 here to complete the 3, and then I keep going, and that's how I make my number. No, I don't know why I put it there. I'm going to put it here. Okay, so if I was going to do 3.78 million here, I would want to write out 3,780, comma. Okay, so 16.2 thousand, same thing, 16 comma 2, and then I finish my little group of 3. 9,800 is a little bit different because 100 is not, one of the sort of packs of 3. So I just add the 2 zeros onto there. There's some hard questions that pop up in tests and things where you have weird numbers like 1,023 million, and students will often pull up short on that and write 1, 2, 3, 0, 0 like that. But that's only 1 million. This is the 1,023 million. And so what needs to be done here, I'm going to put strike through. No, never mind. I'm just going to delete it. What needs to be done is 1, 0, 2, 3, and then I start the process of making millions, which here is adding 6 zeros. Okay, so that's actually 1 billion when I say 1,000 million. Okay, I think for most people it's easiest just to write out every number in this table. In that case, just make sure you take out this label data in thousands. Right? If you want to keep the data in thousands, then at the end you have to go back and you basically have to erase 3 zeros because you're trying to communicate this number as if it were in thousands, and that kind of gets back to what we said before about this 1,000 million, right? If I want to say this number and the word thousands is a label that applies to everything, then that would be 3,780,000. That's the number, which is actually 3.78 million. Okay, so that's kind of the first part, just interpreting and making sure you get this table filled out. Once you have the table filled out, the rest should be pretty straightforward. What you're going to do is make a chart, right? To make a chart, and I'm just going to put in some fake stuff here. Apples, bananas, cats, dogs, 35, 46, 12, 89. So when you highlight this to make a chart, you don't want to highlight everything. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. You're going to just highlight this information. Oh, by the way, it does say uh, add a total row. That's after the insert, but if you have the total here, right, and again, we're going to use sum to do that. I don't know what the total is. I'm just going to guess it's 182 or something. Do not include the total as part of this. Right? You want to just include this when you're doing the graph. Okay, so inserts up here on the top bar. You go over to your charts. We're going to do a bunch of charts in this class. This is our first one. It's a pie chart. Click here. Look at my thing. There's 4 pieces of pie. That's a good sign because there's 4 different categories. Right? And this one, I've got a lot of options you can see here. You can click, it gives you the percentages. You know, it has different backgrounds, different ways of labeling it, but basically this is broken into different categories, and it's got a code here that tells me this one is dogs and this is cats, and bananas and apples. I don't know why they're all in the same pie chart together, but I'm just trying not to do your work for you. Cool. Put it over here. Make sure you change the chart title. You know, double click on that, do whatever. I think actually it tells you specifically, yep, what to title it. So that shouldn't be a question if you're reading the instructions. Okay, then you're into your summary question. Pick a slice of the pie chart and explain what it shows. Okay, so any one of those 4 slices would be fine. And explain what it shows. So we've practiced talking about math, practiced looking at graphs and saying, okay, let's look at just one thing and talk about what it means. So this is an opportunity to practice that. What is the ratio of the number in D13 to D17? So here's D13, here's D17, and you're going to calculate the ratio. I would just go over here and say equals, and then do D13 divided by D17, because a ratio in math, we're going to use that fraction format, and that really just means we're going to divide. So we're going to get some kind of number, and then you're answering, is it part to part, is it part to whole? That question we practiced in class. There's direct application to whether it can be turned into a percentage, and finally I want you to interpret it. Now think about how many different things there are to do there, right? Pick a slice of the pie chart, explain what it shows. That's actually 2 things, but only one thing is going to pop up in this summary question. What's the ratio? You got to do this calculation over here. Answer that in a full sentence, right? So don't type 0.192, which is not the same number, but don't type that into your summary question. Say the ratio of D13 to D17 is this. And then this actually is 2 parts. Tell me if it's part to part or part to whole, and answer the question, can it be turned into a percentage? It is part to part, and yes, I can turn it into a percentage, or it is part to whole, and no, or whatever the answer is. Interpret the ratio in a sentence, that's another part. So just, again, with these complex questions, and this has applications outside of this class. It's one of the reasons I really want to practice this. When you get into harder classes, they're going to ask you things where there's lots of tests. You have to do a lot of things. You've got to explain what you're thinking, and you want to develop a really careful eye to, I've answered this, I've done this, I've done, it's like a checklist. Done all the things that I needed to do. Okay, that's it for Excel 2. Remember, you submit this in Ivy Learn. See you guys later.